All right, so in the last video, we talked about landlord or investment, I guess, investors, and how some of the properties don't make sense and some properties do make sense. So let's talk about it for tenants or, renters. So a lot of you guys are obviously renters, and a lot of those markets, it makes sense to be a renter. So those bloated cities that we talked about where we had some speculation going on for years now, and the properties appreciated so much that there's a big bubble that is kind of bursting right now. But those areas is really kind of unaffordable to somebody to buy a house, and it really doesn't make any sense to buy a house. So let's look at those properties and how you can probably rent out something, and just all you have to do is just look around and not rent something that's kind of a little bit trashy. So this property that we talked about, $840,000 property, right? That's what we mentioned in the last video. Very pretty, very kind of outdated. Not somewhere that you really want to live in whatsoever. So, I said $2,500 a month is the top for that property. It is absolutely maximum. Probably is. Probably not even going to get that much, from an investor perspective. But for you, $2,500, right? Let's say you look at this property and think, oh my God, I would not want to live in there. And then you look at the property that is, let's say this property right there. This is somewhere that, you would probably want to live in. So always look for the biggest bang for your buck. So in this case, you got the property that's completely remodeled, completely done, and all you have to do is just look around. And there's multiple places where you can look around. A lot of the easiest one is really Zillow, is where you can look around for those things and find out where you can live. That's not going to cost you as much, and you're going to make more or save more by living in there. So in this case, you got rental property for $2,000, right? You're paying $2,000 a month. That's a lot cheaper than your mortgage would be. I mean, looks like an average property around that area is going to be at least probably around $1 million, maybe $700,000 if you get lucky, $800,000. But at that point, I mean, you're going to buy a $800,000 property, and your payment is going to be more than $2,000. So you paying for a property that maybe you need to fix or do something with it, you're going to pay more for that property than you would otherwise renting. So $2,000 in rent versus $5,000 mortgage. Sometimes it would make sense if you have a triplex, quadplex, or something like that where you can buy those properties, maybe a duplex, even a duplex, and you can have a tenant on the other side is going to pay a significant amount of your mortgage, and that might make kind of a sense. But again, that's all mathematics. That's just all mathematics. So let's say you buy a property like that, and you decide to, instead of going tenant, you decide to do buy a property. You can afford that. So a lot of expenses, we're going to delve into that as well, because that's cash down. You have to put down cash on that property. You have to do the financing, you have to do inspections. There's a big process behind that. But let's say you do buy that property. Let's say you buy that $800,000 property or $700,000 property, and you get lucky and it's a duplex, and you rent out the other one. Again, we're looking back at this property. You bought this $840,000. You rent that one out, one door. You're not gonna get $2,500 out of it, and your payment, you're still gonna pay over. Even in this kind of situation where you got a duplex and somebody else is paying your mortgage, you're still gonna pay over that $2,000. So again, mathematically, even in this case scenario, it makes a lot more sense to just rent. We're not even talking about single family houses, which is outrageous, because you're gonna be the only one who's gonna be responsible for that, unless you rent out the bedroom, which you could do that as well, I guess. But then what's your standard of living at that point? Versus here, you got an apartment to yourself that somebody else remodeled for you and everything is done for you, and it's only $2,000 a month. You don't have to sweat about anything else, and you can invest in something else somewhere else, or maybe you invest in your business or do something else with that money, because in this case, it does not make any sense whatsoever. Let's look at this Miami property. Again, let's look at that Miami property. $700,000, right? Okay, so again, if you bought that property yourself, you rent it out, let's say, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to rent out one, and I'm going to have, somebody pay my mortgage on that, and, I can live in the other side, right? Okay, well, $2,000 is kind of probably on a higher end side. Maybe you might be able to rent it out for $2,000. Let's say you do rent it out for $2,000. So your mortgage on that is going to be still $4,400. You're still going to be paying $2,400 a month on that property. It looks like it needs a ton of work on it. So you're still going to be really losing, because there's this property, for example. Very similar looking property. It's also a duplex, but somebody else have done remodeling for you. And you're paying $2,400 a month. You know that $2,400 a month That's it. That's all you're paying. It doesn't make a difference if something else broke or something else happened. The landlord is responsible. The owner of the property is responsible for it. So your $2,400 is capped. That's it. That's all you're going to be paying. Versus in the other case, it looks like it needs a lot of work to start with. And then if something else breaks, you are going to be responsible for that. So again, in this kind of market, it makes a lot more sense just to rent. Why would you buy that kind of property? Versus, of course, there's a lot of markets where it makes a lot more sense to rent, to buy. But in those properties right now, in those markets right now, it does not make any sense whatsoever. Again, it's all simple math. You can look at the formulas and we can tell, we can talk about the formulas, but everybody else on YouTube is talking about those things. They're talking about the formulas, but you don't have to do that. All you have to do is look at basic numbers. You have a rental property that you can rent out for $2,400 a month. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom unit for 820 square foot. Actually, it's going to be bigger than this one. It's going to be bigger than this one. It's already modeled for you. And it's going to be a lot cheaper. Why would you buy this property? Why would you buy it? So renting, a lot of times, renting makes a lot more sense. And that's just a couple of properties that we just pulled and it just found, and I'm looking at them like, it doesn't make any sense. And it's all over the place. There are markets right now where it makes a lot more sense, even with how high the interest rates right now, which are outrageous, and are probably going to go back down. They're probably going to go quite a bit lower. Even to the end of this year, they're going to go down quite a bit lower. It seems like everything is pointing in the direction that we're going to get in a recession. So it makes no sense to right now to buy. In those markets especially. If you find a nugget, of course, if you find a nugget somewhere, and if you're living in a market where it makes sense right now to buy, and if you get a good deal on it, by all means, get a good deal. By all means. There's always a good deal somewhere. There's always gold nuggets lying around somewhere. But in rental, right now, in those markets, why would you buy? Well, make your research. It's really that easy. Just look at the map, where you want to live. Look at the Zillow. It's just that simple. Look at a map on a Zillow. Look at how much it's selling for if you really want to buy something, but slow down before you buy it. Let's look at how much you're going to spend on it. Or let's look at rental properties. You look at how much you're going to rent it out. Look, see how much the rental is in that area, and maybe you can find a better deal. Maybe it makes sense to rent. Even if you have cash right now and if you have funds right now to buy something, hold on. Maybe it doesn't make any sense. So sometimes it actually makes, like I said, sometimes it makes more sense to rent out. And if you do sign a contract for a year, and if it scares you because you sign a contract for a year, and if you have a FOMO, fear of missing out, that within that year something's gonna pop up, and you missed on that, and you locked into this contract for a whole year, well, in this case, I think from what everything is pointing to, it actually makes sense to just sign for a year because you're not really going to miss out too much, and it makes sense because you're going to save money anyway. Because you're not going to buy something right away, especially in this market. Don't buy it, especially in those areas. Don't buy it. So signing something for a year, don't be scared about it. It actually makes a lot of sense right now. Look at the numbers. It makes a lot of sense. Renting right now, it makes a lot of sense. Again, we talked about returning investment. It applies to everything. It's not just fancy finance guys, which I went to school for financing. that's kind of how I tend to think sometimes. Finance, and what's your return on investment is going to be. But it doesn't just apply to stocks. It doesn't apply to investments. It applies to absolutely everything. In this case, renting. You have a lot more return on your investment just by renting. You have more pleasure in life. You can enjoy your life more. And you don't have to worry about expenses, and maybe water heater is going to break. What if the roof is going to leak? You don't know. And if you buy a property, then you have to worry about it. If you rent, you don't. So it makes a lot more sense. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. Main thing, what I'm looking for is comment, guys. I want to know what you guys want to know.